welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As we're coming into you this time to the Misfits, and I want to be a New York Ranger, so thank you, the Misfits, for that. But before we get into everything, I want to say one thing to everybody. YouTube,
Acknowledge us.
acknowledge us. That's right.
Exactly.
Acknowledge us, everybody. And you know what? Islander fans, acknowledge us.
Acknowledge us.
Acknowledge the Ranger fans, right?
Yep, exactly. And that was just a wild day that happened. I mean, we talked a little bit about Patreon, but I feel like some of the YouTube people deserve to hear about what happened. All right, this morning I'm eating breakfast at Woodside before I hop on the train to head out there and meet up with you at Penn Station. Then as I arrive at I film my video as you're gonna see in this video that we're about to show. I decided to I was filming a little what was gonna be the intro for the video, right? I mentioned you, I'm mentioning a meeting up with you at Penn Station, everything. Well, and then you see the video of me. You see the video of the LARR train arriving, which is for Woodside, just one Woodside Queens. It's just one stop at the Penn Station where I transferred to NC Transit. Well, I get a phone call that you couldn't make it to the game.
Unfortunately, I was under the weather. I did get sick, and as we see here, Dan is filming this section. Let's see.
And right now you're seeing me at Woodside, my hometown, Queens, New York, waiting for the first portion of the trek, the Penn Station.
Yep, there's Woodside Station. That's the
LARR.
That's the LARR arriving.
Yeah, as we see, Dan, and by the way, too, if you're a Patreon member, this little video that we're giving you just a little taste of today is available on Patreon. Also, by the way, our everyone's favorite Bobo's Trackside Minute is going to be debuting on the not debuting, but the new season, I guess you could say, of Bobo's Trackside Minute will be debuting on our Patreon tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, if you're on Patreon, you'll get a taste of Bobo's Trackside Minute. You got our Patreon show from this past Monday, and this little Bobo video of his trek to MetLife Stadium. So there's a lot of bang for your buck on our Patreon, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. And you guys get early access to this video that's premiering. I believe I'm going to premiere it a half hour before Saturday's game. I figured that'd be a nice little thing. You could, right before you're about to get. I believe that. Am I correct? Is Saturday an afternoon game or an evening game? I think it's an afternoon game.
I'll double check on that right now. Let me see. Let's listen to you in the meantime.
Get in his car and head out to MetLife. Unfortunately, it happens, but luckily my cousin came through in the clutch and made sure that ticket didn't go to waste.
Yes, and this was an interesting thing that happened.
Hope she enjoys the Rangers kicking.
What happened was they needed two tickets because my cousin wanted to bring her husband so they could sit together. Unfortunately, they're Islander fans. I had to give that extra ticket to an Islander fan, which didn't feel right. But what happened was they decided to. I gave them those two tickets, and they bought me another ticket to replace the two tickets I was giving them. So they were sitting in my original seat, the seats that we were going to be sitting at, and I'm sitting in, and my seat ended up being in the lower bowl. And you're seeing me. This was during after the second intermission, like right before the third period. I'm talking about how we're behind at the time before we made that amazing comeback.
Yeah, man, and all Ranger fans, and this is the part that me and you were laughing about on our Patreon on this past Monday.
Yeah, it was just funny seeing these Islander fans in the back. There's two Isles fans in the background walking out upset, and I'm just super enthusiastic after just witnessing the game. Like I was filming this video like right after the Rangers waved their sticks to the crowd, walked off the ice. I just filmed this little video, and I was just pumped. My voice was shot. I had to get some tea on the way back to Queens, and once I got back to Queens, I just had some food, and I think I kicked back, watched I re because the Daytona 500 was rained out and moved to the next date, which I was going to watch, which I had originally scheduled to watch. That ended up being watched live Monday, so I decided to. I also DVR'd the game I was just at, so I could take a look at what the broadcast of that game looked like, and I just kicked back, rewatched it as I had a couple of I had some Labets outside in the spirit of attending the Stadium Series. I figured outdoor game, the kind of being outside the cold weather is a big thing in Canada, the country that gave us hockey. So I decided to get some Canadian beer on Instacart, and I had a I had a couple of Labets where while watching that while rewatching that game, and that
Well,
that was just something. And as you can see in the video, it just felt weird you not being there. That I it just felt so weird you not being there that I didn't film footage of me in the stadium until the third period, right before the third period.
yeah, and the Rangers were down at that point. And obviously, we got that little update mid video of that. And then, as me and you were cracking up, you sent me that video right after the Rangers won the game in overtime. Artemi Panarin puts that turnover in the net. And, me and you both had a pretty good laugh cracking up at as Bobo's filming himself, as you could see in the video that we just showed a couple of seconds ago. And you see those upset Islander fans walking past him. And it was just such a funny, dichotomy of, Bobo at the height of his fandom and happiness and just being excited and making the video that he's going to send to me. And then you just see these other Islander fans just having just blown a 4-1 lead and then losing it in overtime. And they were just so upset. It was just so funny to see the difference.
Yeah, I may have been a little bit laughing at my cousin Melissa when I was texting her.
Well, and you know what, man, you gotta say the Stadium Series, especially here in New York. If you're a hockey fan, you've known that they've been doing the Stadium Series all over the NHL for the last few years, and you have to give it to the NHL for pulling it off. The Winter Classic was the big game, and everybody knew people would show up for that. But a lot of people weren't sure the enthusiasm of getting, the Winter Day Classic game. That's a different story. But for just a regular game to be out in a stadium, especially in New York in this weather and everything, and they got the night before they had the Devils and the Flyers on the Saturday night before that game. They got 70,000 people to come out to that game, and that was freezing. That game was in the 20s too, with the wind whipping around, and it felt even colder than that. The game that you went to and that me and you were supposed to go to, the Sunday game, the Rangers Islanders game, that got 80,000 people. I mean, to have 150,000 people over the course of 2 days go see hockey games in New Jersey, you got to give it to the NHL, man. It's a full-on success for them, right?
Yeah, and I have to give credit to New Jersey Transit for somehow avoiding a fiasco similar to the WrestleMania fiasco that happened. I'm sure you heard about that. Somehow, in order to make sure that there was enough, for those who don't know, when you go to MetLife Stadium, usually for Giants games and Jets games, you would take from Penn Station, you take a New Jersey Transit to see Caucus. Then it circles back in the other direction because somehow New Jersey Transit didn't figure out how to make a train direct to the Meadowlands. It circles back and it does this weird turn toward, and you see the city skyline as it stops at MetLife Stadium. And on the return trip, because I guess maybe they want to make sure that they didn't have, in case they didn't have enough trains for that trip to the Secaucus transfer, where you transferred to the train back to New York. There was some buses that they were directing some people toward these buses, that a huge amount of buses they had to Secaucus. So I had to get on one of those buses and then the rest of the way was the normal trek back from MetLife Stadium. The train back to New York, and
back to Penn, and then the LIRR.
Yep, one stop over to Woodside, and surprisingly that especially Woodside, which is a huge transit hub, also serves the number 7 train Woodside. I had to wait for a bus. I used to wait for a bus to get back to my neighborhood. I didn't have to wait that long for a bus. I only had to wait like 3 minutes for that bus.
Wow, the perfect timing.
yeah. I just got off the train. Had enough time to grab a tea at the Dunkin' Donuts, and that I was drinking that was drinking, and didn't have to wait long for that bus back to my neighborhood. That short bus ride to my neighborhood, because for those who don't know, Woodside's my nearest subway station. But I live in one of those areas of Queens that sometimes is a public transit desert, that I got to take a bus to the subway, or the LIRR, which is also served at that same spot. Woodside Station's a mini transit hub. You also got a lot of bars that if I wasn't in such a rush, I probably could have had a couple of drinks or something, hit up the Donovan's at Woodside after the game if I wasn't such a rush to get home that time. But I was just so exhausted for the entire day, because I had spent an entire day outside and stuff. But I also got to say about the weather, I've been to every outdoor game the Rangers have been a part of. I could tell you that this game specifically, unlike the previous outdoor game, the Winter Classic, where it was freezing cold, that the beers were freezing when people were drinking beers, this game wasn't as cold as I expected. I may have overlayered, but I'd rather have been safe than sorry. But I didn't even need to wear my gloves. I had my gloves in the inside pocket. Didn't need to take out my gloves. I didn't even need the hand warmers I had on hand, because I had these hand warmers that were given out outside the stadium in the fan fest area. I didn't need those gloves either. It's surprising.
Cool.
It wasn't that bad. Wasn't that bad, and it was a great game, and I'm glad I got to be there. Even though, like I said, part of it just felt weird being there, because we were all excited to go into that game together. I bought those tickets. What was it, in October? I think it was. I forgot how long, but I just remember those pre-sale that I got. We were excited about that. Oh, let me see what the heck.
Yeah, me and you jumped on those tickets pretty early, and unfortunately, I just have the worst timing with getting sick. So, I've been sick all, and I'm getting better though, so I should be back up and running in a day or two. But it's just been crazy with the voice and the coughing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, on that game. But Dan, thank God we got the W, right?
Yep, we got the W, and as I said in the video, I vowed that somehow, whatever the both of us will get to a game this year. Somehow
we will, absolutely.
Yep,
we will be at Madison Square Garden seeing the Rangers before the season's over, guaranteed.
Yep, exactly. We're guaranteeing it, like Mark Messier did Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
We will win.
Yep, exactly. And so speaking of Messier, what you didn't see during the broadcast, I think right before during the second intermission, there was a ceremony where they honored some of these new legends for the Islanders and the Rangers that made a, and you had Messier make an appearance. You saw Lundqvist was there. I think Richter and I believe Leach was also there. Those were the Rangers, I remember, that were part of that ceremony they had before the third period of the game. Shock they didn't show that on TV. I did like that intro when they had the players for the Giants and the Jets and speak to the fans before the game. I thought that was really cool when they did that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool too. And the other thing I thought that was pretty cool was, I don't know if you saw this, because I didn't even hear about this until the other day. But here, I'll share this right now, because apparently the Rangers had Mike Keenan and Mark Messier read the lineup card for that Stadium Series game coming into it. So here it is. And I thought it was pretty cool.
Yep, I saw this on their Facebook page, or I think it was their Twitter page. This is pretty cool seeing this.
It's crazy seeing Keenan look that old now, right?
Yeah, it's weird like seeing him balding like that because I still remember Keenan during that '94 season, and it's just it's just like he get old, but it was good to see those two again, and I thought that just was epic. Like I saw this on before the game when it was on they were posting this on, I think it was before the game or somewhere I think on my way back that I was looking at the Rangers Twitter page and the older social media feeds, and I saw this and I thought this was neat.
It's so cool. Let's watch another couple of seconds of this. Many years. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff from the Rangers there. And you know what? I love how the Rangers still keep Stephen McDonald and his family involved in a lot of the big stuff they're doing because
Yeah,
he was such a big part of the Rangers.
yep, exactly. He was such a big part. Was a huge Rangers fan. I feel like the Rangers almost helped him get through some of the tough times he went through the rest of his life as a result of the unfortunate circumstances. I actually once met the guy once at I forgot sometime when I was maybe a kid at St. Patrick's Day parade. I met the guy couldn't have been nicer. That he was a nice guy, and I have to say he was definitely a national treasure here in New York. Those of us who have been lived here in this area most of their lives know how much of an important figure he was in New York.
Absolutely. Stephen McDonald, Officer Stephen McDonald, by the way, if you don't know his backstory in the late 80s when he was a young cop in his early 20s, he was shot by a criminal and paralyzed, and he was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, which unfortunately he passed away just within the last couple of years, definitely within the last 10 years or so. And we lost Steve McDonald, but hey, his memory lives on. And like you said, Dan, he and his family continue to this day to be New York and New York Rangers royalty. So very cool to see them included in all this, as they should be. And
Yep. And I also
yeah,
have to give props to the Rangers for coming up with that epic intro when that epic walk into MetLife, that entrance when they had the NYPD and the FDNY accompany the team on their trek into MetLife Stadium. As you probably seen the footage, they arrived on the back of a fire truck. That was just such an epic walk-in to MetLife.
Yeah, I agree. And apparently that was Captain Jacob Truba's idea, where the Rangers walked in with the FDNY, the NYPD. So very cool gesture by them, and a great job by Jacob Truba. A guy who's not from New York, but a guy who has really grown into his role as captain and a New Yorker. And this Rangers team, man, they just keep going. Because after they won that game on Sunday against the Islanders, that was their 7th straight win. They go out and they extend their winning streak to 8 straight as they defeated the Dallas Stars 3-1 at Madison Square Garden this past Tuesday night. You got to give the Rangers credit, man. This team just continues to fly. Igor Shesterkin, I can honestly say that was the best game I've seen him play all year. 41 out of 42 saves. And let's not forget, this is a Dallas Stars team that's second in the Western Conference in points. They're one of the best teams in the league. They were also on an extended winning streak, at least 5 or 6 games going into the Rangers game the other night. And they had just scored 9 goals in the game in their most previous game that they won 9-2. So if the Rangers to shut them down and win that game 3-1, the only score that Dallas put in was a power play goal that was just unstoppable for Shesterkin. But other than that, Igor stood on his head, and the Rangers beat a really good team. You can't tell me that the Rangers have beaten up on the crappy teams, because when you look at some of the teams the Rangers have beat on this streak, it's some of the best teams in the NHL.
Yeah, they just beat one of the toughest opponents, and that shows the teams that win it. During the season, they rise to the occasion against the tough opponents, and just seeing that the Rangers are going to be a big threat for the Cup. And we were talking about how I was bummed out. Well, of course, me and a couple of years back, I got a picture with the Cup, but when they had it on display in that fan fest area by the stadium that day I was there. So I thought it would have been neat to have gotten a picture of the both of us by the Cup. And I said, damn it, if only we could find a way to get other opportunity that we were deprived of, to get that photo that would have been the social media, would have been the photo on all the show's social media page, us with the Cup. If only there was another way to get the opportunity for that photo up. Maybe if the Rangers win the Cup, we could get another opportunity with that. Maybe we'd be able to find a way to maybe convince one of the players to, maybe we could do a broadcast from someplace in New York. Well, one of the players lets us borrow the Cup for a broadcast.
You got that right, man. That would be awesome. Or hey, maybe we'll get lucky enough that if the Rangers get to the Stanley Cup final, maybe they'll have another fan fest like that, and we can get in and get our picture with the Stanley Cup, which would be very cool. Very cool. And yeah, man, just a big win. Hey, this could be a potential Stanley Cup final matchup where the Rangers and the Dallas Stars. It would not surprise me if, obviously we're rooting for our Rangers to go, and the way they've played this year, it would not be a surprise if they ended up there. The Dallas Stars are on the same thing in the Western Conference, man. They've been so good this year. They have great goaltending, great defense, and obviously guys like Tyler Seguin that can still put it in the back of the net. And this is a team that the Rangers very much could see there, right?
Yeah, and I can tell you that would be something for my brother to get who my half brother lives out in Texas, in that area. He'd have a lot of fun laughing at them as the Rangers win the Cup.
Yeah, you got that right, man. No doubt about that. And also too, now the Rangers are getting ready for for us, it's tomorrow night. If you're watching this live on YouTube on the day we're putting it out, Thursday night tonight, the Rangers play the Devils in New Jersey. The Rangers 37-16-3, taking on the Devils 28-23-4. Rangers currently have a 17-point lead on the Devils in the division. So we're not really in the same league right now as for playoff competition, even though the Devils are the team that did knock us out last year. But, hey, man, I think this is a situation right now where the Rangers can carry over this momentum. There's no lull in the schedule. You go from facing the Islanders, which no matter when they face the Islanders, it's always juiced up. But then you add a stadium series game on top of that, and that was a playoff atmosphere. Then obviously the game against the Dallas Stars on Tuesday night, I feel like that game really had a playoff atmosphere too. Everybody kind of had that same playoff game feeling for both these teams. And then, hey, rolling into Jersey on Thursday nights, the same thing, man. Your blood's going to be boiling. This is the team that knocked you out of the playoffs last year. Let's beat the hell out of them tomorrow night and hopefully, be one of the teams that ends their season, right?
Yeah, exactly. I hope we pull this off. It's going to definitely be an intense game. There's definitely going to be a lot of Ranger fans making their way across the Hudson River to attend this game, as always.
No doubt about it. We always have a good showing over there in Jersey, so it'll be a good game. It'll be a emotional game. It always is against Jersey, they're going to be coming out in full force there. I did want to get to too because we have the NHL trade deadline coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that for a second, but before we do that, I also want to spend a second talking about the Islanders, who they played also on Tuesday night where the Rangers did. Now, the Islanders, you're looking at it from their perspective, man. I mean, for the Rangers, you're on, we're riding high. We're feeling good about ourselves. But if you're an Islander fan right now, that enthusiasm really isn't there as much. I mean, the Islanders on paper right now, they're not that far out of a playoff spot. But I mean, realistically, if you look at the Islanders, their record is 23, 18, and 14. So, let's look at the Rangers too. We're looking at them. The Rangers are 37, 16, and 3. So the 3 is the 3 overtime losses. So pretty much when you look at the Rangers record, they're 37 and 19. When you look at the Islanders, 23, 18, and 14, means the Islanders are 23 and 32. They added the extra 14 points, which is a lot, by the way. They're 14 overtime losses. So, Dan, I mean, if you're the Islanders right now, are you looking at yourself as a playoff contender and possibly making a trade to back that up? Or are you kind of thinking about the future and trying to move a couple of these older pieces out to get younger?
I just feel like this team just looks like they're going to fall just short of making a playoffs, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. And, as the NHL trade deadline on March 8th gets closer and closer, the Islanders are going to have a lot of decisions to make. Do you think the fact that Patrick Waugh, as we were saying, he's a fiery head coach. It's a guy that wants to win. If you have Patrick Waugh as your coach, it's not going to be a rebuild. So what do you think? Where do you think the Islanders go from here? I mean, they just traded for Bo Horvat last year too.
I just think they're going to be buyers at the deadline. Based on all that, it just looks like they're going to be buyers.
So do you think that it's going to be kind of like, because me and you both think they're going to miss the playoffs, basically. The one thing it reminds me of the 2021 Mets. Remember when the 2021 Mets made a couple of deals at the trade deadline? They brought in Javi Baez. They brought in a couple of other little pieces to try to spark the team, and then nothing really happened, and they missed the playoffs and crapped out. And then, they got criticized for trading off pieces and everything that could have helped them. It kind of reminds me of that, right? Where if the Islanders are really going to try to be buyers at the deadline, it's just going to come back to bite them in the ass.
Yeah, I just feel like this team looks like they might be staying put, and they might just either not make the playoffs or just barely sneak in, potentially leading to a situation where the Rangers are going to face the Isles in the first round, possibly.
And Dan, you know what? If that happens, that'd be a good sign for me and you because the last time the Rangers faced the Islanders in the first round of the playoffs.
Yup, exactly. The the cup the cup came back to New York City for the first time since 1940, and ending the long playoff drought. And
Exactly.
also I noticed a weird statistic about me attending games ever since 2022. If I listen, if I take out my phone on my way to the game, I'm pulling out my headphones. If I'm listening to the music of Bandmate on my way to the game, my favorite team, the team I'm a fan of, in whatever sport it is, if I'm going to the game, has a winning record.
Ah, very nice. Very nice.
And
You got
and
a perfect band made for that.
yeah. Maybe I kind of hope this kind of grabs the attention of Bandmate. Maybe it leads to somehow someone contacts us and we get to have
Oh,
them as guests on the show, or maybe there's a thing where we could set up doing broadcasting a show from some place that they somehow come all the way to New York to do a performance because
well, Dan, you know what we
they
got to do? Band made. Acknowledge us.
acknowledge us. Acknowledge us. I got to learn how to say that in Japanese. This way maybe they can. I got to learn how to say. I got to learn how to say. I got to learn how to say it in Japanese because and by the way, yes, that is what I was listening to on the train
There you go. That's the good
on the
luck
way
charm.
there. Yeah. It's a good luck charm if I'm going to the game, and that time later, before the regular season ends, when we go to a Rangers game, you're likely to find me listening to. That's gonna be what's blasting out of my headphones on the way to the game.
Yeah, man. Yeah, there we go. So, obviously, we got the band made, in our back pocket with the Rangers victory there. We got the NHL trade deadline coming up. We talked about with the Islanders, potentially standing pat or maybe adding. Obviously, if you've watched us over the last few weeks, we've discussed plenty of options for the Rangers. Also, if you watched our Patreon show, if you're a Patreon member, which we appreciate it if you are, as always. If you're not, patreon.com/best seat in the house, $5, /best seat in the house podcast. Oh, it's only $5, so we appreciate if you help us out and support us, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. It's only $5. It's the cost of a Metro card for
That's
$5
right.
a month. Yeah, it's the cost of
That's
a Metro
that's a
card.
good point.
But
That's a good point.
it's a great deal, especially when things are going up in price. It's only $5. It's like Arizona. We somehow managed to keep this price at $5, just like Arizona is able to keep their giant cans of iced tea at only $1.
That's true. That's true too, man. So yeah, absolutely. Make sure to check out our Patreon if you're involved. That the price is staying at $5. We're not going up. We're not going anywhere else. So we appreciate everybody that's tuning in and catching out all of our fun content that we have there. And hey, also Dan, I wanted to also get into a little bit because obviously, me and you got to touch on a little bit of baseball before we get out of here. But I also want to talk. It feels like it's been months, but it's only been about a week since the last time the New York Knicks played, and it's probably a good thing too because they had been on a 4-game losing streak, mostly because they're playing with a depleted roster. They were all banged up. They lost a couple of guys after the trade that brought in a couple of these new faces, Bogdanovich and Alec Burks. So you have these guys back in 4-game losing streak. I feel like now the Knicks have had a week to kind of settle down, work these two guys in, these two new guys into the rotation again, and let some of their bigger guys heal up. I know OG is coming back. He had surgery about a week or two ago, so they said it was going to take 3 weeks. So you figure he'd be back in the next week or two. Julius Randle is coming back now, where he had the separated shoulder from a few weeks back. They're hoping he's going to be back at some point in early March. And unfortunately, one of the other injuries is Mitchell Robinson, and he's not going to be coming back this year. He's done for the season. So when you look at this now, Dan, I mean, the trade deadline in the NBA is passed. This is the team we're sticking with. We got to wait for a couple of these other guys to be healthy. But what is your look for the Knicks now as they start the rest of the season now on Thursday night in Philadelphia?
I just feel like it's going to be a big playoff push. It's going to be, and Thursday night is going to be an exciting night sports-wise. I'm going to have to do a little two-screen action. I'm going to have one game on a TV, the other, because the Knicks and Rangers are played at the same time. I'll have the other game on my phone via the cable company's app or the MSG Plus app, which I get access to for free with my cable company. So I'll have two games on at the same time as I'm keeping track, and hopefully I'll maybe have a nice dinner. I think tomorrow I'll probably go with some pizza as I'm watching the game. Some pizza, maybe I'm trying to think. I'm thinking going maybe old school and acknowledging old school New York Mets and acknowledging an old soda sponsor that I remember back in the day. My first memories of the Mets, I remember their soda sponsor was RC Cola. I think I might go a little old school with the soda.
Well, if you're gonna go, why don't you go with Rheingold beer? If you're gonna go with old Mets sponsors.
Well, they Rheingold beer isn't brewed anymore. Unlike RC Cola, you could still find that.
I know.
I would need a time machine for that. I would need a time machine for that, and probably drop off some sports betting information to my family that's intended to be inherited to me if that was the case.
All you have to do is pick up the Gray Sports Almanac.
Yeah, exactly. Send two copies. One for, like, let's say, I don't know. I'm gonna guess. Hand it to my mother, depending what year it is. Yeah, once you're old enough to gamble, this has all the information you're gonna need once you're old enough. And here's another one. You're gonna hand this to your firstborn kid.
And you got to tell her, if you see any wild-eyed old man or some kid, you got to get rid of them.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, for some weird reason, all of a sudden you find a casino you find some casino somewhere that had all of a sudden some weird alternate universe that I ended up owning the Mets.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd be nervous as fuck if I realized that if I altered history that much that I'm that all of a sudden my mother when I come back to present day, and my mother has to remind me that, Daniel, you own a team.
Yeah.
I'd freak out. And I would hope, for all sakes, that I still know you in that universe, in that alternate reality. I would hope so.
It would be like, how in every movie Marty wakes up in the dark room and his mom says, well, you're here at good old. It would be like for you, you'd be waking up and your mom would say, oh, Daniel, you're still here at good old Shea Stadium. as you're coming out of your coma.
That's why I don't think I want to deal with something scary as sad as a back scenario. Plus that my mother was a kid in the 70s.
Well, no, I'm saying if when you came back. All right. This conversation's already getting off the road.
Yeah, that's awkward. I'm just thinking it's awkward, but.
But you know what, though, it's funny to think about, and
it's just funny to think about, but yeah, I'm just trying to hand this kid a sports almanac and try to explain that it's gonna be for your son in the future. It'd be kind of funny.
Well, Dan, we were just talking about the Knicks. I wanted to ask you, did you catch any of the NBA All-Star stuff this weekend?
I caught some of it. I thought it was kind of cool. I had it on record, and I thought it was kind of cool. The things they did with the LED lights and the little effects on the court was kind of cool.
Mm.
I also saw an advertisement. I get this advertisement for this company that does all these interesting little bobbleheads. They did these bobbleheads because of Indianapolis, the auto racing venue. So they had these bobbleheads with these little race cars with the different NBA teams. I kind of like the way the Knicks one looks. I
Yeah, I
might
thought
buy
that was
that.
pretty.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought that looked pretty cool too. You're right.
yeah. I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna buy that one. It looks pretty cool. It looks pretty cool. I'm buying that one for myself.
Yeah, it makes sense, man. The one thing though that bothered me. I mean, look, the 3-point competition is always fun to watch. The slam dunk, always fun. All the stuff, all the little festivities and stuff like that. The NBA usually does that pretty good. But it's funny, if you are a old school NBA fan, like 90s, 80s, 90s, like me and you, we grew up on watching.
Yeah.
We grew up watching defense, man. And the NBA All-Star game is a joke when it comes to defense. The final score of this year's NBA All-Star game was the East won 211 to 186. The first time in NBA history any team, had reached 200 points. Damn, that's a disgrace.
Yeah, that is a disgrace. I mean, it is just a far cry from what I see when I look at highlights of the All-Star games of the past and how different it is. I can tell you, if I'm flipping through the channels and I notice NBA TV is running like that highlight film from the '90s, I'm just looking at this with nostalgia. My eyes are lighting up with those memories, and that was just such a great era of basketball. I had to show this documentary to my sister, who's much younger than me. I mean, there was a huge age gap. I mean, to put the context how old my sister is. When she was born, I was 13 years old. So I'm showing her this documentary, and I'm showing her this is what basketball was like. Me as a kid and stuff. This was like an era of basketball I grew up with. Like this is what it was like. Like I got to see this is glorious era that I got to see, and she's seen footage of like Jordan in her prime and stuff. Like she's heard of Jordan as just this mythical person from the past, and she's seen footage of some of these greats that we're seeing when the Knicks, all those years of the Knicks nearly winning a championship, which still hits me with came so close.
Yep.
How close
That,
we came
that,
for freaking
that
losing to the
93
Bulls.
Knicks team, that 93 team kills me because I think that was the best out of all the teams the Knicks had in the 90s.
Yeah, we always got roadblocked by Jordan, and that Bulls dynasty. Even when that documentary about the Bulls dynasty premiered, it just hit back PTSD memories of that, seeing that, watching that documentary, just seeing that, just reflects the memories. And even when I play NBA Jam, I'm pulling out my old school Sega Genesis, and I'm playing NBA Jam. It just brings back that memories of like nearly winning championship, and then also just really having a laugh at one of the hidden character codes. Remember that hidden character code, the play as Bill Clinton code? I just look at that now and I'm just joking around. I did not have any sexual relations with that Knicks dancer.
Makes sense. I hear you. Yeah, that used to be a funny code. You're right about that.
Yeah, that was the weirdest hidden character I have ever seen. Even weirder is that the arcade port of NBA Jam Tournament Edition, which was the sequel they made to NBA Jam, which was also great. I have that one also. The arcade version, there was a hidden character code you could play as Mortal Kombat characters.
Very cool. Oh, yes, you're right. I forgot about that. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I wish somehow, unfortunately, the issues with the NBA and legal issues, they weren't allowed to do a home port of that version of the game with that code, with that hidden character code still in it. But it would be cool if I could get a home version of that with that hidden character code, because the only way you could get a version of NBA Jam Tournament Edition with that hidden character code is if you had the money to pony up for an arcade unit from back in the day of NBA Jam Tournament Edition with that still had that hidden character code
Good point.
because later productions of that same arcade unit had that hidden character code removed.
That makes sense.
So it would be extra pricey because you would have to get one from the first wave of the first shipment of those arcade units to have one with that hidden character code. By the way.
Oh man, well, love that little piece of knowledge right there. And yeah, I think Dan, that's just about going to do it for us. Before we get out of here, though, I did want to touch on a little bit of baseball. Obviously, we got a couple of notes this week. Pitchers and catchers reported late last week. The Mets don't play their first game until this Saturday. Is their first game of the spring. Everybody, pitchers, catchers have reported. Obviously, position players are there now. Everybody's getting settled in. We'll start in Mets camp. I got one Mets note I wanted to look at, and then one Yankees note real quick. For the Mets, obviously, me and you were talking about it off air before we started. Kodai Senga already is out and sidelined with arm fatigue. Just a few days after his, he had reported to Mets camp. Really not a good sign, especially when me and you have spoken all winter about how the only guy we're really comfortable with in the Mets rotation is Kodai Senga. So the guy, who you feel most comfortable with coming up with an injury as soon as camp starts, that is not a good sign.
No, I am just hoping this is just a small bump on the road and he comes back fine. I'm just hoping against hope that I don't get the worst. I'm not hearing the news TJ. Let's put it this way. I'm not going to mention it by name. Just going to mention initials. I hope I don't hear that mentioned because it's just scaring me. I think already this is happening, and I think everyone I know has me on suicide watch because of this. Because of how I am when I'm a Met fan. I've been through this so much that already season hasn't started, and I'm already on Mets fan suicide watch. And
yeah, at least last year when it happened, they and Edwin Diaz got hurt. They waited until mid-March. At least we got a couple of weeks of happy baseball.
Yeah, and at least even then the team looked like we thought the team was going to power through it, but then the way the season played out, the players that we thought were going to be that live up to the expectations didn't quite live up to those expectations, and we were just tanking the rest of the way. But even with that, I'll definitely be in front of my TV for the first spring training game, and I'll be wearing because I wanted to have that nice little South Florida warm weather vibe. I'll be bringing out my Mets. You've seen me wear that shirt, that Mets tropical shirt. I'll be bringing out my Mets tropical shirt. Maybe kicking back, drinking a Corona, because I want to get that nice little warm weather vibe, that South Florida vibe. Because I'm seeing pictures from people I know who are at Port St. Lucie at the moment, and I just want to get that nice little warm weather vibe because I look at baseball season. I mean, people talk about the groundhog as being, not too the early sign of spring. To me, opening day is the first sign of spring. There's two things in New York I consider a sign of warm weather. One, attending a Mets game. Two, hearing that Mr. Softy jingle across the street from my house because there's a Mr. Softy ice cream truck that stops usually across the street from my house around the same time, usually around 6 or so. If I hear that truck, yeah, I know warm weather season right about upon us, and I probably want to get some Mr. Softy ice cream sometimes. I know where to find it if I want to get some Mr. Softy ice cream. And I can tell you, ice cream from those Mr. Softy trucks just hits different. You hear that from those trucks that are blaring that are playing that, and despite the fact that truck used to scare, the sound of that truck used to scare Anthony. I mean, there was a funny bit. You remember that bit when Anthony
I
said how
remember.
that Mr.
Yep.
Salty truck, and then the Mr. Salty driver called into Anthony's show to mess with Anthony. He blared the sound of the truck on the speakerphone to mess with Anthony. That
Yeah.
truck, I hear that. Well, it's not always going to be consistent. If I'm going to get ice cream, but if I happen to be craving ice cream that day from a Mr. Salty truck, I know around that time that truck's going to be stopping there. So I know when I hear that, had the cash ready and go to the truck. I don't have to chase after the truck because it's practically almost across from my door where it stops. Walk across, hand the guy the cash, know what I want to get, and then I'm eating some ice cream from an ice
Yep.
cream
And
from
yeah,
a Mr. Salty truck.
exactly. And real quick before we move on, we only got one more thing to get into, but I wanted to ask you, um, talking about the Mets right now, real quick, Steve Cohen, and the direction of this franchise. You know what? I just want to get real quick because we're just about done. What do you think Steve Cohen right now? This is year 1, 2, 3. This is year 4, basically, of him owning the team. What is your grade for this offseason for the Mets? And what is your grade for Steve Cohen as an owner?
Well, I feel like this off season maybe has to be a D because they didn't do enough to, especially pitching wise. They
Yep.
really needed to do something pitching wise. They should have like gone after Blake Snell after all of a sudden they're not going to do that after they were tossing bags of money at Yamamoto. They put in all the effort, and unfortunately Yamamoto didn't want to sign here, which was out of our control. Was that all we could do was hopefully we made the good offer and threw the bags of money, but in the end the player had to make the decision and didn't make the decision we hoped for, and I was disappointed in that, and we just didn't do enough to go out to get pitching in a bullpen. I felt like, and that just made me furious. I feel like Steve Cohen, maybe I'll give him a C, just because he bought a team that was run to the ground by the coupons, and that's no tall order. That is no tall order, and he's just trying to right now at the moment to get the farm system to where it needs to be. He's having to throw money, and
No, you're right, and
but
you're definitely right about that.
but I feel he needs to maybe I feel like C because I feel that's enough, but I still think he needs to do more, and he needs to maybe put his foot to the ground in David Stern's office to do something. And I hope against hope that because he grew up a Mets fan, he remembers the tragedy of 1977. So I think every Mets fan older that was alive back then remembers when he had one of their great stars leave the team. That he will do everything he can to get Pete Alonso to re-sign with the Mets, whether it's during the season or during the off season. I just know, unlike past times, they'll be open to negotiations during the season. So I feel they have all the time they need to make this happen, and they better make it happen. Otherwise, you will not be able to talk to me for months. If Pete Alonso
Dan,
leaves.
I agree with you. I agree with you on the basically me and you were on the same page on the off-season grade, right? You gave it a D. I mean, I'm kind of really inclined to give it an F, but I guess there's really not that much of a difference there, kind of splitting hairs. But for Steve Cohen, though, as an owner, you give him a C, and well, everything you said is 100% true. The Wilpons did leave him a very big hole he has to dig out of. The Pete Alonso, and if Pete Alonso had been signed up and everything, then I would agree with you, and I'd give him a C. I'd still say so far it's a shitty job, but he's had a lot to work with, and at least he locked up Alonso. I don't believe Mets are going to sign Alonso. I think when 2025 starts, I think Pete Alonso will be on a different team. As a matter of fact, I think they're sabotaging this season in part because they want to trade Pete Alonso at the trade deadline and get prospects for him or whatever. Like it's the fucking Wilpons days. So to be honest, right now as an owner, I'm giving for the off season F for me. For as an owner, D. And he could make that higher if he signs Pete Alonso, but I don't think it's going to happen. Right now, all signs point to he's leaving via free agency, or even a trade. And I just don't have faith. I think David Stearns has poisoned his mind and is making him think like a small market team. And I think that this guy Steve Cohen just doesn't know what he's doing now. And just like you said, and I'm sorry, I see the amount of Pete Alonso slander on Twitter and everything else I see by Mets fans is a disgrace. I saw earlier today people talking about that Pete Alonso's ego is destroying the Mets. What ego does Pete Alonso have? I've never seen anything about this guy having an ego. He's been nothing but bleeding orange and blue since the day he came into the league. Every one of his teammates loves the guy. So what exactly does everybody hate about Pete Alonso? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it. I know maybe it's a weird thing. Like you see half the fan bases loves Pete, but you got these half that what are they thinking? I feel like maybe since WFAN isn't what they used to be on my account, I feel like they're the equivalent of the lunatic WFAN callers. I feel like this guy has been nothing but one of the greatest Met players we've had. I mean, this guy has been. I feel like he's been a team player. I mean, this is a guy that you want on your team, I feel like.
I totally agree. If the Mets let Alonso walk, they'll spend the next 10 years trying to replace him.
Yeah, exactly. This one they cannot let this guy go. It'll be a tough one to replace. And I said you would not be able to talk to me for a month. I mean, if I meant to have me doing a show, you have no idea how I would feel like. I would feel what my mother felt like when Tom Seaver left at 77. That's what I would feel like.
It would be like you're a monk and you've taken a vow of silence.
Yeah, I would just I'd be turning my head, and this just shows that I'm hearing that they're actually talking already about re-signing one of their players, Francisco Alvarez right now. That I have to applaud that decision. They're talking about doing that because I feel that they're finally realizing now they need to do something, similar to what the Braves are doing. Sign these Gubs now, especially before they all of a sudden decide that they need Scott Boras because.
Yep. All the smart organizations lock up their young talent.
Yeah, exactly. They need to do this before they get victim to that Scott Boras epidemic.
Yep. And speaking of that epidemic of these players looking to cash in, real quick before we close up, we're just about done here, everybody. Thank you once again, everybody, for tuning in and watching episode 103 of the Best Seat in the House podcast. One last thing, our last note is that the Yankees right now are competing with two West Coast teams for the services of left-handed pitcher Blake Snell. And as it very much annoys me and Dan both that the Mets aren't even involved in these conversations, which is a disgrace, and Steve Cohen, should be ashamed of himself for, especially when they didn't bring in anybody else all offseason, and the Mets rotation is a joke. But let's talk about the Yankees right now. The Yankees are all in this year, Dan. I mean, they have 1 year, one guaranteed year of Juan Soto, and you better make that year count. The Yankees, are looking to lock up Blake Snell right now. I think that'd be a great move for them if they do. The only thing I'm surprised they didn't do is bring in a top-notch closer like Josh Hader, because I think the Yankees really need something like that.
Yeah, they're in need of their bullpen. I just feel like for years the Yankees have had trouble getting with their bullpen for years.
Yep. Ever since they let those guys left, you had Betances and Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman, and those guys were just filthy at the end of the games. And ever since they let those guys walk, the back end of the Yankee bullpen has not been the same.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm even talking about like way back since Rivera retired. I feel like the
Oh yeah.
Yankees haven't had that that closer.
Well, I mean, look, Chapman was really good. I mean, I know he had a couple of bad moments in the postseason against the Astros, but Aroldis Chapman was really good for the Yankees when he was there. And like I was saying, the back end of that bullpen, I don't know if we've ever seen anything as nasty. When they had Betances in the seventh, Andrew Miller in the eighth, and Aroldis Chapman in the ninth, they have a video up on YouTube now. I was just watching it the other day where you saw those guys face 9 batters and strike out 8 out of 9 of them. I mean, it was just really incredible what the back end of that Yankee bullpen was, and I feel like they just wasted it.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like they just wasted that opportunity, and it's just falling by the wayside. And they're gonna have to pull the move on Blake Snell. But
Well,
like we've seen with the
do you
Met,
think they're
like
going to
we've
get
seen with the
Snell?
I feel like it's
Well,
50-50. I feel like it's 50-50 because for some reason these West Coast teams seem to be being good at wooing free agents lately. I don't know what's going on,
yeah.
but they
And
and
he
we
seems more like a West Coast kind of guy, right?
yeah, and I just seen it so much with the even with the Mets trying to get Yamamoto. You're throwing all the bags of money you could at this guy, but it didn't work. It doesn't always work out these days, even when you're
Yeah.
throwing out a shit ton of money.
Well said, Dan. And you know what? I think that's as good a place as any to finish it up today because yeah, you nailed it there. Can't put a cherry on it any better than you just did. So I think everybody, that's going to do it for us this week on Best Seat in the House podcast. Dan, before we get out of here, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, I gotta plug my Twitter Bobo103NYC. Also Instagram Bobo718BK. It's the same username I go by on Threads. And of course my YouTube Daniel Curlin. You guys who subscribe to the Patreon got early access to that little video I filmed during the Stadium Series. That video is going to premiere on my YouTube about a half hour before the Rangers game on Saturday. So you'll get a nice little video to watch before the Rangers hopefully defeat the Flyers on a Saturday. You'll be able to see a little video of what it was like. My experience was like attending the Stadium Series. And
Yeah,
and
and oh, actually, Dan, and you mentioned that Flyers game. Sorry to interrupt you real quick, but I forgot we got sidetracked before. That Saturday game against the Flyers in Philadelphia is a 3 p.m. start.
yeah, so you'll be able to watch that a little bit before. You'll be able to watch that a half hour before the game. No, a half hour before the game, and that's gonna also be another day. That's gonna be a little neat little sports viewing experience because I'll have like I said, I think it might bleed into the Mets spring training game I'm going to watch that day. So I'm going to have a nice little 2-screen setup for that, and some nice, maybe some lunch, maybe grab a sandwich from the deli or something while I'm sitting there, and of course have my Corona in hand because I'm trying to get some warm weather vibe. But you'll be able to watch that by video a half hour before the Rangers take on the Flyers on the other end of the New Jersey Turnpike.
Exactly. So make sure to subscribe to Dan's channel, and you can check that out on Saturday when it debuts. If you want to see it before that, you can see on the bottom of the screen. Please subscribe to our Patreon for $5 a month. You'll get that. You'll get our bonus episodes for Patreon, and you'll get Bobo's special Patreon only series, Bobo's Trackside Minute, where he gives you his thoughts on NASCAR and this past weekend's Daytona 500. So make sure to check that out. We appreciate all the support from all our fans. Yeah, you want to add something, Dan?
Yeah, and of course, once again, congratulations to Daytona 500 winner William Byron, carrying on the legacy of one of the most iconic numbers in NASCAR, the number 24, made iconic by Jeff Gordon, and of course, driving for the same team owner that Jeff Gordon raced with, Hedrick Motorsports, which since Jeff Gordon's retired, he's a co-owner of that team. So in a way, when the greats of the sport is still involved with the team and is a part of that win. So it was nice to see the legacy of the number 24 being carried on, and once again showing up in victory lane at Daytona, seeing a driver with that number lift the Harley J. Earl Trophy.
Very cool, man. That's very cool. And yeah, that's gonna do it for us. So don't forget to check out all of our friends. Subscribe to our buddy Bob Levy in the Levyverse if you haven't seen that yet. Check out Eastside Dave McDonald and all of his great stuff on the Davey Mac Sports program and his Patreon. That's also only $2.50 a month. You can check that out. Great value for Dave's Patreon. And don't forget our buddy Carl, who was just our guest a couple of weeks ago. One of our most loved episodes that we've put out. Carl joining us from Who Are These Podcasts. Subscribe to his Patreon too. Always a lot of fun content from our friends around the universe, whatever you want to call it, YouTube, and all of our buddies. So want to thank everybody for supporting us. For Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Kramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast, and we'll catch you next week, everybody.